So I think we should now move on to the last topic that we have. That's our presentation for. It's about, we call that sharing. That means technical and organizational obstacles and solutions for secure data platform in cancer imaging. And thank you very much, Martin, that you take over to give us a short introduction about this issue. I think you don't have to introduce yourself because you already are involved in a lot of discussions, but I want to highlight here for all the participants that they know that you are among many other working groups you are working for. You are the co-leader of the platform work package of EuCanImage. So you are really deeply involved in all that challenges that we are facing here. And you also work for a lot of other projects that involves a lot of clinics and sharing of data. And particularly, I've read you are also a part of the Sarcoma Artificial Intelligence Consortium. This is very, very interesting because we know that sarcomas are rare diseases, and to improve research, we have to collect data. So we are really, is this required to work together? Otherwise, we wouldn't never get enough data for developments of AI. So are really very experienced on this field. So please start our session here with and give us some insights and your thoughts. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the kind introduction. So I don't think I indeed need to introduce myself. So I will give a short introduction on the technical and organizational obstacles and of course the solutions of making a secure data platform in cancer imaging, specifically for sharing data. So what's the issue we have here? So I hope in the past we only use things like CD-ROMs and external USB drives to share data, but luckily in the current era we've moved towards digital storages. So in digital storages, we can have central storages, so which are hosted at one place. But in recent years, we've also seen that federated storages have become really popular, so that every hospital sort of keeps their own data. But what do we actually require of these storages to store our cancer imaging data? So if we look at the challenges that surround it, the first one is to pick an actual storage solution. So of course you can build your own storage software, or you can pick one of the existing software solutions. Then if you have such a solution, you have to host it somewhere. So someone needs to host a database where you can submit your data to and download. And you could do that yourself. It might be beneficial that someone else does it. And if you have this storage solution running, it was also named earlier, it's important to make your data fair. So to make sure your data is findable, accessible, interoperable and reusable. So I will shortly address these challenges, and I will mostly show how in EuCanImage we deal with these challenges, sort of to illustrate a potential approach to solve these. So in EuCanImage, what we did, we make use mostly of existing research infrastructures. So we're not developing everything from scratch ourselves, but there are multiple parties involved which already have infrastructures up and running. So it means they already have experience and solutions that have been proven to work in this field, and they are also hosting these infrastructures. So that takes away a lot of our worries. So for example, in EuCanImage, we have the European Genome Archive, where the clinical data is hosted. We have the Imaging Archive, where the imaging is hosted. And we have Collective Minds, where the annotations are performed and initially hosted. And since this session is on imaging, and well, I'm also from the Imaging side, I will focus on the Imaging Archive. So shortly introduce Imaging. So it's a landmark research infrastructure in Europe, recognized by the European Union. And how it works, Imaging consists of multiple nodes. So these nodes are scattered all over Europe, and each of these nodes provides specific expertise on specific research infrastructure services. So I'm from the Erasmus Medical Center, and we're the population imaging flagship node. So we have a large population imaging study in Rotterdam, where this hospital is from, where we followed a lot of people over a long period of time, approximately 30 years, and we've collected a lot of data about them. So clinical data, but also a lot of imaging data. well, to host this data, but also to analyze this data. We have a lot of experience with software and services. And this is the expertise that we offer through this EuroBioimaging node. So in EuCanImage, we're responsible for the imaging platform. So this imaging platform is hosted at a small company called Heidelberg, and the solution we use for this is XNOT. So XNOT is a software specifically designed for storing, sharing, and managing medical imaging data. It's an open source software solution, so anyone can host such an XNOT, and we host it centrally at this professional company, like I said. So it gives some benefits. So we have a service desk, and we offer second line support, and we have all kinds of certifications, so you can be sure that it works. And this project has also been running since 2015. So this archive has already existed for a while, and it's used in multiple different projects. So yeah, you can look it up, but we have over 200 different projects in there nowadays. So from the EuCanImage side, for example, if you would visit the XNOT, you could find our 2 public data sets in there containing imaging on several different cancer use cases. So I would say making use of these existing infrastructures already checks off a lot of these boxes. So we already have storage solutions, we have sustainable hosting, and I want to point out here that these are now centrally hosted, but in EuCanImage, we also offer federated solutions of our platforms. So we also have a federated infrastructure. And these solutions also partially already make sure that the data is interoperable and reusable. But this is only part of your storage solution for sharing data. We still need to make the data findable and accessible. So to make data findable, it's very popular to do cataloging. So to make a catalog which people can visit to see which data is available in your repository. So in EuCanImage, we're making use of, again, an existing research infrastructure, the EuroBio Institute of Biomedical Imaging Research, where the EuCanImage catalog is hosted. And in this catalog, EuCanImage is displayed as a network. So if you would look it up, you can select this as a network, and you will see which data sets we have available, which currently are 2 public data sets, but in the future, we hope to add more. So in these catalogs, no actual data is stored. So there's no imaging data in there, but you can find project-based descriptions of the data set. So you can see, for example, we have a brain data set with 730 patients, which all have this and this MRI. You cannot access the data, but you can find our data at least in this way. And we've also linked this catalog to the TCIA, to the Cancer Imaging Archive, so you can also see what data is available in there. And I hope in the future we can connect more catalogs, such that you don't need to browse through different catalogs, but that you can easily look through different catalogs. Specific within EuCanImage, we're making a metadata model for cancer imaging, which we use in our catalog, so that we are sure that users that want to know specific things that are relevant for cancer, so specific diseases, for example, can find this data. So through a catalog, we can make sure our data is findable. I would say then the last part of being able to share the data is the accessibility. So besides the whole legal framework, we need to find a structure such that users can easily access the data. So in EuCanImage, we make use of a data access committee tool that's developed and hosted by the EGA. So in this tool, users can request access to a specific file or data set. We have certain policies for data sets, so like DTAs, DPAs. If these are accepted, the data access committee is contacted. So usually these are the clinical centers which are still owners of their own data set, and they can decide whether certain people get access or not. So in this way, the whole access procedure is also automated to make this easier for both the data controllers, but also the users. So I would say with these components, we've checked off the boxes to be able to have a cancer imaging archive and to share it. I'm not going to discuss the whole EuCanImage platform because there are many more components in here. And this whole storage solution, which you can see here in the middle, is just one of them. I've already explained the curation part a bit, but we also have a lot of AI solutions which are on top of it. And I guess this is key for sharing data. It's good that your platform is interoperable such that it can interact with any kind of service that you want to run. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I guess give the floor back to Heinz.
Yeah, thank you very much, Martin. This is really impressive. Also, what you have achieved here. I mean, the one thing, of course, we know this is the technical developments, and the other one are the legal aspects. But we want to not to discuss now the legal aspects. We have done it already in the first and the second presentation. So let us now focus here on the technical aspects. And yeah, now the discussion is now open for all attendants, but also for the panel members. I'd probably like to start with one question that I also have in mind, that because I'm also involved in a lot of, let me say, trials to build up this kind of networks. They cost some money. So what is the financial concept behind that? Because when we build up a platform that should be sustainable, so that means there will be maintenance costs. And what are your considerations? How one can, yeah, on the long run have a financial concept that is also sustainable?
I would say it's difficult to give a definite answer to that, because of course you can always decide to host something yourself or to indeed host something centrally. If you host something yourself, in the end, of course, it also costs money, because you need to hire local expertise, have a local infrastructure. And especially, I guess, for small local hospitals, this might be far more expensive and complicated than going for a central solution. And especially if these central solutions are a bit bigger. So, for example, our infrastructure is quite large, I would say. The maintenance is split over so many different projects that as a user, you only pay a minor fee. So indeed, we have a pricing model where you pay a yearly budget for maintenance based on the size of your projects, basically. And since we're also supported by a couple of funding agencies, but also since we have so many projects, I would say it's relatively low per project.
So it is paid by the researchers, or I don't know, probably also companies that use this platform for their purposes. Is that right?
Yes. So indeed, anyone in principle can apply for a project in our infrastructure, and indeed you pay per project. So you can have multiple studies per project, and based on how big your project is, you pay a yearly fee. That's our pricing model.
So that would mean if anybody here of the audience or anybody here in Europe would have an idea of a collaboration project with other partners,
yes,
one could contact you and say, I have here an idea. Could we use the platform for these purposes?
Yeah, that's also especially the idea of the Euro bioimaging research infrastructure. Not that everyone has to bring local expertise to their own hospital, right, but that they can make use of these already existing infrastructures, which have shown to be pretty reliable and useful in the past. And
this is also backbone for the EuCanImage.
Yes, this is a backbone. In EuCanImage we do this, but we're, for example, also in EOS for cancer, in EuCaim, in CanSurf, in a lot of different projects where, yeah, we offer infrastructure services.
Okay, this I think is an important information for all the attendants here, that something is already available. And please let me ask me a further question. Are the data, if the data are stored centrally, is this like in a cloud? So could one imagine that all the data are, I don't know where they really are physically. So is the storing place physically, probably in your cellar or in any other building? You know, where are the data physically? But sometimes this plays a role for ethical committees and so on. They ask, where are the data? How safe are the data?
No, so for the XNOT, like I said, it's an open source storage solution. So we're hosting an XNOT, but many other people are hosting XNOTs as well. Our specific one, so in the Netherlands, we have something special, I would say. We have a national infrastructure. So we have one central XNOT for all of the Netherlands, which is also the one we're now using internationally. Right. So that data is also physically stored in the Netherlands.
Right. So this is important to know, because I know also of concepts where, for example, an Amazon Cloud also can be used for storage of data and so on. And they are outside of Europe, and there is much more difficult.
Yeah, this also makes it a bit easier for us, because in all these projects, the data is stored in exactly the same way. So we process things in the same way, and legally things are also arranged in the same way.
Yeah. So, but now I have really spoken too much and a lot of hands I see already. I don't know exactly who was first, Iona or Ignacio. I don't know exactly. Oh, I
No,
see.
that is okay. I mean, Ignacio can start.
I think it was Joanna, but
It is okay. It is
So,
okay,
so I would
Ignacio.
say, sorry, but it was a lady first. Is that okay?
okay, okay.
Please go ahead, Iona.
So my main concern also from the experience we have in science is how much if we're going to scale it up and really have some solutions, you know, adopted in different hospitals and in a wider scale. This would also require a lot of training, digital training, and the health professionals. I mean, I don't think it will be just that, you know, that okay, we have an infrastructure. I mean, EuCanImage has a good infrastructure, and I guess other initiatives. And we can assume that there will be a federated solution and you know, infrastructure and connected infrastructures in each one in the local side. But this cannot work automatically, I guess, and we will need to see what is needed for these healthcare professionals to step into such procedures. And I don't know. I think this is something we have not really. We need to think more about that. Because I mean, otherwise data are you know, contributed, but the data are not the way you want, and they can. We have to solve all sorts of problems because, you know, the guy, you know,
No, you raise a very important issue, I think,
yeah.
indeed. And I think we have a lot of training materials which we've developed over the years. So that already helps a lot. I guess that's again an advantage of these existing infrastructures. And we have an actual service desk. So we do provide support indeed also for the training and the usage. But this is a question indeed, how much expertise do you want locally? So for example, in the Netherlands, what we now have decided is that all university medical centers will sort of act as regional nodes. So they will have local expertise and they will sort of offer support for the region around them, basically. So we split the support and the training, basically. So in that way, not every local hospital has to have expertise, but at least in every region, we have someone with the expertise present. So that's the model we're now using in the Netherlands.
Yeah, hi Martin. Well, I'm Ignacio. I'm a software engineer at the Biomedical Imaging Research Group at La Fe at Valencia. Well, my question was very aligned with the one that Joanna just asked. It was related to your experience with because you mentioned the implementation of the federated model. Well, I wanted to ask you, you have any experience in the federated learning paradigm or in the federated learning implementation due to two main reasons? No, one is the one that Joanna just mentioned, which is the common data models, right? How we store the information, how we are going to extract that information. Is that data is very complex, and how do we extract that information in order to train our models in the federated nodes, right? The federated entities, which maybe do not have this kind of structured data, right? These data warehouses or you know, using these common data models. Well, that one part is related to the on how do you add a node to the federated network, and what steps do you or how do you yeah, how do you teach, right? As you say, how do you support in that matter? And the other one is related to the computational resources that these federated nodes have to have in order to well, train their models or in order to process the information. That is an issue that we are facing on our project, because not everyone has the computational resources to be able to accept this kind of workload or the computational workload. So what is your experience in that area, and how are you managing this kind of problems?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Indeed, I would say federated learning is quite a hot topic nowadays, and we're indeed also working on this in EuCanImage. I think it's very important to distinguish between federated data and federated learning, because in principle, you can have federated data storages without federated learning. But indeed, federated learning is one of the top use cases, I would say. And I think there's not one model that everyone is using. There are a lot of different federated learning solutions out there. Also, in terms of data storage, I'm now presenting the XNAT, but you will see in the other European projects, people have different kinds of storages. So yeah, this story can differ per storage. So I find it very difficult to answer that question like as a definite thing. And the model we're now using is we just use containers. So we have Docker containers with our storage in there, which centers can host themselves. So they don't need to buy a specific computer or whatever. They just install a specific container. It's a bit easier. And in that container, we ship basically an XNAT, but also the software to operate on the XNAT basically. That's what we use now. And also in this aspect, you can decide to host this locally, but you can still do this centrally, but then in a federated fashion. So for example, if you use our XNAT, if you have your own project, you're still in charge of your own data. Like in principle, no one has access except you. So you can still decide to host the data centrally at our storage, but you're the only one that has access, and still use a federated learning model that will maybe access specific parts of our XNATs from different centers. But so that means on paper, so let's say legally it's federated, but in practice it's hosted still in the same central storage. So you will have to do federated learning, but you're all making use of one single infrastructure. And again, it depends again on your local hospital, what's more attractive for you, to start hosting your own Docker containers and your own storage, or just use part of an existing central storage, but it's legally only accessible to you. So we offer both, I would say.
Yeah, I find for me sometimes it's quite difficult to differentiate between distributed and federated, because I think that sometimes the words are mixed up, and not because I understand more in when you have multiple repositories, and they are the local entities who are owners of those repositories are the only ones who are able to access the data. It to me means more kind of a distributed repository. And you know the twist of the federated way is to have this kind of connection that you mentioned, that it's when you're able to allow this access to only a part of the data that you want to share, but without extracting the data, you know.
Thinking about more in the future, if the concept is successful, what I think it can be, it might be that you have to expand. Would it be thinkable that your platform is also distributed over different other European countries? That means that the storage is also in, I don't know, Spain, France, Germany, and so on. But you organize it from your side. You know what I mean? That also,
yeah. This already sort of exists because, like I said, XNAT is an open source software solution. So we're hosting one, but many different people are hosting an XNAT. There's this international XNAT community, and there was a workshop like a month ago. It was the yearly community meeting. So already there are many different XNATs scattered among Europe, among the world, and they can be easily connected indeed. We're currently mostly focused on the Netherlands, but indeed rolling this out on a European scale. But I know, for example, the EGA, which is also in EuCanImage, which is hosting the clinical database, they indeed work with this this node per country, basically. So they're originally from Spain, but I know they have a node in Sweden now, and in a couple of other countries. So they indeed also work with this model. Let's have a couple of regional nodes that can then talk to each other on an international level.
But the platform is maintained by you. That
So
means to retrieve the data, to store the data, to retrieve the data, to combine the data. I mean, also to view the data and to do the annotation and so on.
No, so that indeed depends on your model, but I think the idea for this is that indeed the nodes are autonomous, so that indeed the nodes are 100% responsible for the local management, basically.
Okay, that's very interesting.
But there are different models that are possible here, so it really depends on indeed your project, which kind of organizational infrastructure is most attractive.
Right. Yeah, are there? Joanna, you want to comment?
Just a small extra question. If you want to combine your imaging related features with other features coming, I don't know, clinical data, metadata, I don't know, biological data and so on, what do you think would be the approach there? Because, you know, the integrated solutions are now quite interesting and hot.
So in EuCanImage, we have specific separate storages for the imaging data and the non-imaging data. So in EuCanImage, we also need to perform this linkage, such that indeed you can combine both. So luckily, both platforms have APIs, and we've sort of connected through the APIs which patient in one platform belongs to the patient in another platform, etc. So by establishing this linkage, it's very easy to automatically extract both the imaging data and the non-imaging data for patients at the same time. But this linkage is indeed highly important. So I guess for any platform that you pick, it's highly valuable that it can sort of expose the entries to the platform which you would need to link data. And in our project, we're specifically working with radiological data and clinical data, but there are also platforms for pathology data, specifically for genomic data. So on a European scale, I think it's highly important that we do a collaborative effort to sort of link all these existing solutions to be able to indeed do proper multi-omics analysis.
Extremely good. I don't see any questions from the audience. If you have any questions, please just type in the chat, and I will dig it up and ask the questions. Is there any other comment from the panel? I mean, we are so impressed by your work. There's no many questions open, so.
I wanted to ask you about, well, Davide mentioned it in the first conversation, the blockchain, right? And how would you fit this technology, which means that it's auditable and open, you know, well, it depends on the type of blockchain, right? If it's private, if it's public, but how does the blockchain technology fit here? Because, for example, in the Camino project, my colleagues at the UPV in Valencia have been developing a dataset tracker service, which is published in a blockchain, right? To keep track of who creates the datasets, who executes or uses those datasets for processing the images and train their models and so on. And that's a solution that I see as, you know, as it can be adopted right now, because this type of you know, features are interesting to keep to keep track of what has been done to the data and what type of, well, to what we are doing with the data, right? And but regarding this kind of networks, how does this, how do you see that this type of technology fits into all of this?
I must admit, I'm personally not so much in the blockchain business, so I find it difficult to make a very concrete answer. Actually, Davide is also in EuCanImage in charge of the blockchain component, so I don't think he's here anymore, but he knows a lot more about it. I think we have discussed about using it for indeed in the access control, basically, to control the access and to manage this. But also in the discussion of the anonymization of the clinical data, this has come up, because at some point you're adding so much clinical data that the question pops up indeed, can you properly anonymize this? That was also identified earlier. So there it might also be attractive to use blockchain such that people don't need to have access to the clinical data at some point.
I was wondering more, yeah, on the data access part, right? On the on how we can deploy smart contracts, right, to substituting the contracts that we sign on the physical world, right? And allowing some everyone who wants to, well, if you want to apply for access to my platform, we can do it by delegating the permissions on the blockchain and doing it based on the terms of the contract that we have deployed and so on. I'm not an expert too, but I see it as a possibility, right? To do this kind of permissioned model where we can manage all in that chain, right? Not the data of the patients, not the computation, not the computation, because this has to be off chain, but to make this data access orchestrated by these smart contracts. I think that to add your node to this federated network, it could be, and to give permissions over a certain type of data or which is owned by the certain entity. I think that this kind of technologies could fit here well to manage all these issues.
And I fully agree. Indeed, it could solve a lot of issues. It is also on the roadmap of EuCanImage, but it's still in the early stages. And like I said, I'm not myself so knowledgeable about the topic, but I agree that it's definitely a promising technology to, yeah, solve some of the open standing issues.
There is a question here from the chat. How to overcome the problem of storing a relatively large data size? Is it stored on the cloud or on servers?
Yes. Yeah, so indeed, this will definitely become a problem in the future. We're mostly now storing it on servers. So indeed, we want to store it at specific servers so we can be sure the data is physically stored in a specific place. What we are doing is we do distinguish sort of between active data sets and, let's say, archived data sets. And for the archived data sets, we can use all kinds of compression to sort of minimize the storage as far as possible. However, transferring things again from the archive to the, let's say, active data set part is also a heavy operation. So currently we're not running in these issues, but it's a very important question that will definitely need to be answered for us in the future. I hope that that answers the question. I don't know if other panel members have experience with this.
No, so far not, but we are all facing the same challenge. Yeah. How this, but I learned from our people from the bioinformatics that in fact, so from a physical point of view, the storage is not the problem, should not be the problem. So the space for itself shouldn't be the problem. How to handle that is another thing. Yeah. But the genomic data are huge. I mean, they're even more than our imaging data. Okay, are there any other contributions from the panel members, or is there anything else from the audience that we should discuss?
Just to have a little comment on the storage issue. We are not actually managing the infrastructure on the Chameleon project. Our colleagues on the UPV are the ones in charge of that. But I think that the point is using technologies to provide the ability of scaling very quickly in case of the shortage of this kind of resources, you know, and to use state-of-art object storage technologies, and which allow us to scale up the resources in case there are shortage if the platform goes out of resources, but because I'm not directly involved, but I know for certain that they are then using this type of technologies to provide this kind of adaptation capabilities in case the platform usage grows very rapidly. So that's my 2 cents on that.
And maybe one issue that we do have already on this aspect is, of course, we store a lot of these data sets. And now if many different users at the same time try to download many different data sets, yeah, that's a huge load on the system because a lot of tera or petabytes are downloaded at the same moment. So that's an issue that we're actively working on. But I guess indeed this is also something that, yeah, any large infrastructure experiences.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, is there? So I don't see any more questions in the chat, and also from the panel members. I cannot. So I think we are all a little bit exhausted from this long day now and long discussions. It was extremely inspiring for me, and I think we have touched a lot of aspects, and we learned a lot. I think. Yeah, we can also end a little bit earlier, 50 minutes earlier. I want to thank all speakers that have contributed here. I want to thank all panel members for their contributions. Particularly thank the society, the LCR and ESOI for helping us in organization and bringing all the people here together. This is an extremely challenging work that we are working on, that it's worthwhile that we stay on that, and I'm very sure that if we succeed in the European space, we will be the safest and best place for AI research worldwide, and this could attract a lot of companies also to do their developments here in Europe. So this is a really important challenge we are here working on, and I was impressed by all the proceedings that we have now achieved here. Yeah, thank you very much. All I would say I will close this meeting here. Have a nice evening, and I'm very sure we will work together and see us again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Hans.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.